conduct a document review utilizing the Product Sampling Inspection and Analysis under the SQF Module 2.4.4, first check if the document title matches the uploaded file name on the dashboard. In this instance, we do have the same titles as the Product Sampling Inspection and Analysis. Next, both must have the same document code. For this example, we do have 2.4.4P0. Since this is a template, we indicate the PCQI as the account initials. However, we can customize the code based on the company's initials. For the page number, we use the page X of Y format. Ensure that it reflects the current page position and the total page number of the document. Then insert the company logo here, together with the company name, the company address, and enter the designated department. For the originated by section, it can be the food safety, quality assurance, or the quality control personnel of the company. The originator ensures the implementation of the quality management and document control system. Enter the name of the originator, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date originated. For the reviewed by section, it can be the personnel assigned in the Quality Management Department who reviews the drafted document or its revision for accuracy and implementation. First, enter the name of the reviewer, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date reviewed. For the approved by section, it must be the person in the C-level management who has approval authority. First, enter the name of the approver, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date approved. The revision date is the same as the date originated or drafted by the author. For the effective date, it is the date the document was signed and approved. The publication date is when the document is published for distribution and initiated personnel training. The implementation date is when the document is distributed and personnel training is completed. For the supersedes, put original for the initial issuance of the document. For any revisions, reflect the initial revision date before the current revision. Please be reminded that this section must be properly filled out to be compliant. Now we will focus on the components of the program. First is purpose. The purpose is the implementation of any certification standard or compliance with a regulatory requirement. For this program, it is for implementation with the SQF Module 2 Edition 9 for food manufacturing under Clause 2.4.4. 1. To implement SQF 2.4.4.1, the methods, responsibilities, and criteria for sampling, inspecting, and/or analyzing raw materials, work in progress, and the finished product shall be documented and implemented. The methods applied shall ensure that inspections and analysis are completed at regular intervals as required and to agreed specifications and legal requirements. Sampling and testing shall be representative of the process batch and ensure that process controls are maintained to meet specification and formulation. 2. To implement SQF 2.4.4.2, product analysis shall be conducted to nationally recognized methods or company requirements or alternative methods that are validated as equivalent to the nationally recognized methods. Where internal laboratories are used to conduct input, environmental, or product analysis, sampling and testing methods shall be in accordance with the applicable requirements of ISO IEC 17025, including annual proficiency testing for staff conducting analysis. External laboratories shall be accredited to ISO IEC 17025 or an equivalent international standard and included on the site's contract service specifications list. 3. To implement SQF 2.4.4.3, on-site laboratories including chemical and microbiological analysis that may pose a risk to product safety shall be located separate from any food processing or handling activity and designed to limit access only to authorized personnel. Signage shall be displayed identifying the laboratory area as a restricted area, accessible only by authorized personnel. Fourth, To implement SQF 2.4.4.4, provisions shall be made to isolate and contain all hazardous laboratory waste held on the premises and manage it separately from food waste. Laboratory waste outlets shall, at a minimum, be downstream of drains that service food processing and handling areas. During the ordinary course of food production and manufacturing, the product shall be sampled and analyzed either during or after production to ensure that it meets specifications and to verify food safety aspects. 5. To implement SQF 2.4.4.5, retention samples, if required by customers or regulations, shall be stored according to the typical storage conditions for the product and maintained for the stated shelf life of the product. And 6. To implement SQF 2.4.4.6, records of all inspections and analysis shall be maintained. Second is scope. The scope of the program is based on the purpose and serves as a guide in defining and describing the layout of the procedure. It includes the product sampling, specification, materials, intermediate products, packaging materials, finished product, retention samples, laboratory waste, analysis, and on-site laboratories. Third is policy. The policies are the rules set by the company as their implementation guide. The documented procedure outlines the methods established to test finished products, work in progress, and/or raw materials to ensure they meet the specification in relation to food safety. Inspections, test, or analysis of finished product were finalized before delivery to a customer is maintained by the company. Second, the assigned personnel responsible for sampling, inspecting, and testing finished product, work in progress, and/or raw materials, and identifying the methods used to collect samples and complete these tests, inspection, and analysis were identified by the company. Third, employees were trained for the appropriate sampling or testing techniques relevant to their responsibility. Fourth, identification and documentation of the appropriate tests for food safety when inspecting and/or analyzing raw materials, work in progress, and finished products. Testing and sampling methods represent the batch suitable for environmental conditions and activities. The results are not adversely affected and completed at regular intervals according to specifications and legal requirements. Sampling and testing methods should be conducted following nationally recognized method or company requirement. Proficiency testing should be conducted to calibrate the performance of the laboratory personnel and/or the test methods and checked against an accredited external laboratory at least once per year. And external laboratories are be accredited to ISO 17025 or equivalent. And fifth, retention samples. The company store retention samples according to the typical storage conditions of the product. The fourth component of the program is procedure. The procedure is the step-by-step process and the actual implementation of the policy. Under procedure, 1 is product sampling. During the normal course of food production and manufacturing, the product was sampled and analyzed either by the following frequency to meet specifications and to verify food safety aspects: before, during, and after production. Second is specification. Specification documents define official tests, test methods, and limits. The specification should exist for each raw material, finished product, and intermediate or bulk product. If specifications are not met, the laboratory should start an OOS investigation. Third is materials. Requirements for starting materials are well defined and documented to ensure that you get the materials specified or ordered and that there are no mixed-ups. Specifications for starting materials should include inspections and/or tests required, reference to test methods and acceptance criteria, material storage conditions, a retest or expiry date, if applicable, reference to pharmacopoeia method and approved supplier and manufacturer, sampling instruction or reference, and any precautions. Specifications for raw material and primary or food contact packaging are adequate and accurate to ensure compliance with relevant food safety and legislative requirements. And the specifications include defined limits for relevant attributes of the material, which may affect the quality of food safety of the final products. Fourth, under procedure is intermediate products. Specifications for intermediate and bulk products should be available if these are received and dispatched or if data obtained from tests on intermediate or bulk products are used to evaluate the finished product or further processing. And as appropriate, the specifications should be similar to specifications for starting materials or for finished products. Fifth is packaging materials. The requirements for pre-printed packaging materials are well defined and documented to ensure that you get the items you specified or ordered and there are no mix-ups. Specification for packaging materials should include a detailed description of the item. Under that, inspection and/or tests required, acceptance criteria, an approved label copy, approved supplier and manufacturer if applicable, sampling instruction or reference, storage conditions, and any precautions. Sixth, under procedure is finished product. Specifications for products typically include an exact statement of the active material, the product codes, the dosage form and/or strength, physical appearance and identity, on tests and their limits, details of or reference to the test methods, sampling instructions, the shelf life and storage conditions, designated name, package details, formula, and any precautions. For Trader Joe's product requirements, finished product specifications are defined and published in the GORP library to consider the microbiological and chemical hazards in the hazard analysis in determining what finished product testing, if any, should be conducted. And in the event that Trader Joe's decides to randomly sample and test, it will use this criterion to do so based on the product classification the product falls into. Testing beyond this criteria may be necessary based on the risk assessment. Test and hold is required when pathogen testing is performed on any Trader Joe's product. The finished product is controlled until test results indicate the product is absent for the pathogen of concern. And notify within 24 hours of all non-conforming finished product pathogen testing results. Records are maintained. Next is retention samples. The samples are hold using the same container closure system in which the packaged and labeled product is distributed, or if distributing products to be packaged and labeled, using a container closure system that provides essentially the same characteristics to protect against contamination or deterioration as the one in which it is distributed for packaging and labeling elsewhere. Identified with the batch, lot, or control number. Retained for 1 year past the shelf life date or for 2 years from the date of distribution of the last batch of products associated with the reserve sample for use in appropriate investigations, and consist of at least twice the quantity necessary for all tests or examinations to determine whether or not the products meet product specifications. Eighth, analysis. The types of testing that are conducted on finished product were determined by the finished product specification. Examples are varied depending on the nature of the test for food safety or quality and can include the following: sensory analysis, physical, chemical, and microbiological. If external laboratory analysis is used, the company demonstrates that such analysis is completed by a recognized laboratory that is accredited to ISO 17025 or an equivalent national standard, and one that uses recognized industry standard methods. When checking the accreditation status of the laboratory, management ensures to check that the testing method is under the laboratory's scope of accreditation. The methods may be described in the specifications and provided a copy of the laboratory's ISO 17025 accreditation certificate for microbiology and chemistry. If in-house sampling and testing is conducted for raw materials, finished product, and work in progress of critical food safety tests, the interpretation of the following code requirements would be identified as meeting the applicable requirements to ISO 17025. And testing methodologies must conform to AOAC official methods of analysis. Ninth, under procedure, is on-site laboratories. Location of the internal or laboratory site does not pose a risk to food safety. Laboratories include signage restricting access to authorized personnel. 1. Laboratory requirements. Away from any food processing, handling activities, or food contact surfaces to avoid contamination. Documented procedures were established in the proper way of disposing laboratory waste in a way that it will not contaminate raw materials, ingredients, work in progress, packaging, or exposed product. Signage was posted at laboratory entrances restricting access to trained, authorized personnel. Signage consists solely of icons such as those published by the International Association for Food Protection to accomplish these requirements, and other local regulatory requirements are applied. The testing methods used in the internal laboratory were justified and proficient against an accredited laboratory to validate the testing methods. Laboratory waste were labeled, stored, and disposed of separately from food waste. This applies to contained waste and waste flushed to drain. Laboratory waste. The company isolate and contain all hazardous laboratory waste held on the premises and manage it separately from food waste. Laboratory waste outlets are at a minimum be downstream of drains that service food processing and handling areas, and records maintained for all inspections, tests, and analysis. Second is proficiency testing, being conducted to calibrate the performance of the laboratory personnel and/or the test methods, and checked against an accredited external laboratory at least once per year. External laboratories are accredited to ISO 17025 or equivalent. The company conducts laboratory tests which are critical to food safety and required to verify the accuracy and reliability of the testing methods used on site through a proficiency test. The applicable proficiency tests are conducted annually at a minimum. And proficiency testing is inter-laboratory comparison that calibrates the performance of laboratory personnel and other relevant staff who conduct microbiological, chemical, or physical analysis of ingredients, materials, work in progress, finished products, and the processing environment. And third, internal company laboratories which are not ISO 17025 accredited must have an annual third-party good laboratory practices audit and proficiency test on file. Testing methodologies must conform to AOAC official methods of analysis. Now let's proceed to the fifth component of the program, which is responsibility. The responsibility of the person is indicated. It covers what to perform to comply with the procedure or the policy. First is for the quality personnel. They are responsible for collecting of sample subject for testing and to oversee the operation of on-site laboratory. The on-site laboratory is separated from food processing and handling areas. Laboratory access is restricted to only authorized personnel. Laboratory waste is properly treated prior to disposal. Laboratory waste is adequately contained and separated from general food waste, and adequate signage is available for the laboratory. Next is the responsibility of the SQF practitioner. Ensure that policy is instituted, audit of the facility, and documented procedure on laboratory waste management. For the purchasing personnel, collect COA of every raw material ordered or received. For the quality or compliance department, document control, records, and archive. And for the senior management, ensure that staff is qualified, trained, and competent to complete sampling inspection and analysis. Next to responsibility is corrective action. The corrective action is the process of taking appropriate steps to eliminate causes of nonconformities or other undesirable situations. If pathogens are found on the finished product, that product will not be released into the marketplace until test results are obtained and negative results are verified. If microbiological retesting is required, the sampling plan and retesting are more robust than the original sampling plan to ensure the validity of the results. It is not valid to retest a sample when results are obtained that are not desired by the management. Seventh is review quality. The review section serves as guidelines for conducting the annual or periodic review. Methods for sampling, inspecting, and/or analyzing raw materials, finished product, and work in progress are documented. Documented methods are approved methods and meet regulatory and customer requirements. Inspections are conducted as documented and at intervals sufficient to maintain control. Inspections confirm specifications, label requirements, and trade weights and measures. Analyses are conducted by qualified individuals and to approved methods. Alternative methods used are validated as equivalent to the national approved standard methods. External laboratories are accredited to ISO 17025 or equivalent national standard. Sensory evaluations are completed to internal and customer specifications. And records of all inspections and analysis are accurate and maintained. Eighth is reference document. The reference documents are the set of documents used to implement and monitor a program, policy, or procedure. It includes the certificate of analysis and raw material sampling inspection and analysis. Next is references. The reference section is composed of guides utilized to implement the program. Examples are the certification guide, regulations, and other widely accepted scientific journals, research, and the like. It must comply with the standard format citation, which can be based on either MLA, APA, or Chicago style, and update the access date. Lastly, history. The history section is where we can update the program if there are any changes or revisions made in the document. If there is a revision, enter the revision number, followed by the revision date, the description of the change made, the name of the author or the originator, and the title or department of the author or the originator. Thank you for participating in this document review. Content presented are for training purposes only and are based on the interpretation of standards and best practices and must be customized for your intended use. To fully customize your programs, policies, procedures, forms for records, and lessons for training, you may contact Interlink IQ or Consultier Inc. at services@interlinkiq.com or simply call 202-982-3002. For free access, visit interlinkiq.com.